Welcome to session 1 of the Internal Map of Reality. I am Steve Oliver, your instructor, and we'll be continuing on with session 1. We'll be going into part 2 of session 1. I'll just pull up my PowerPoint. Now in part 2 of this, we're going to be looking at what a map is. We're going to take a very high level view, and then of course each session will be drilling in deeper and deeper into what a map is, what the internal map is. So basically we all know what a map is. A map is a piece of paper that tells you how to get from point A to point B. It's not the actual location, but if you want to get from, say, Halifax to Toronto, I need a map. And even though I know generally how to get to Toronto from here, if I'm going to jump in my car and drive, I'm going to pull up a map which is going to show me the streets to go on, the highways to take, etc., etc. So it's detailed instructions on how to get from point A to point B. Now, it's very important to realize that the map itself doesn't really tell you anything other than, where's the next place you have to go. It doesn't have any, what I call, content. So a map is really content free. It's basically step-by-step instructions on how to get to where you, it doesn't really tell you how to drive the car. It doesn't really tell you what you have to wear and dress. It doesn't tell you what the weather's like. It doesn't tell you whether you'll like your destination. It just tells you how to get there. So our internal map is similar, except for one difference. Our internal map contains information about all of our experiences in the past. And it has information about what we are experiencing in the present. And then on top of that, it has a detailed expectation of what will happen to us or to you in the future. So it's basically your roadmap of what's happened in your past, what you're experiencing right now. Provides what is called filters. You filter your present based on your past, and you filter your present based on where you think you want to go into the future. So the key here is that the map contains everything you experienced. Now, it also is focused around beliefs. So if you take everything you experienced in the past, you have formed certain beliefs about yourself and about your world. These beliefs that are embedded into your map determine your behavior. So if your history, your past, had really negative experiences and you really had a difficult time, then you might have beliefs that the world is a hard place. If, however, in your past you had a really easy time and everything was a piece of cake and you got whatever you wanted, and if you needed to go somewhere you could go, if you needed to buy something, there were no restrictions. You might have a belief that says you can get anything you want at any time. So these beliefs are developed over time and are embedded unconsciously into your map, into your personality. So when we start digging into beliefs and I ask you to identify your beliefs, you might have great difficulty. You might go, oh, I don't know what I believe, Steve, And we might even have to pull them out of you one at a time. Here's an indicator. If you believe something, it's probably something that you spend a lot of time doing right now. It's something that you believe you can do, something you believe you should do. So another example would be, if someone believes that they need to get an education to get further in life, then they're going to be in school and they're going to work really hard to achieve their education, and guess what? They are going to get what they believe. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if what you believe, you tend to get. And the key here I like to look at is that it's mostly unconscious. So all of your experiences that develop your beliefs about your world go unconscious, yet it is a big part of how you conduct yourself on a day-to-day basis. It becomes an automatic response. So you respond automatically to the world around you. And a lot of times, this response is really there to protect you. It's, I imagine most of you have heard about the fight or flight response. People don't want to get hurt. So I know when I'm talking to people, quite often I can see that a lot of their beliefs are centered around protecting themselves, protection. The other key automatic category of responses are things dealing with survival. Your bottom line is that you are going to survive as an entity, as a being. And your subconscious will do whatever it can to survive. We'll be talking more about the subconscious later, but basically it's a big deal. And the final area, third area, big area for automatic responses is reproduction. We'll do things unconsciously to enhance our ability to meet a desirable mate and to reproduce and to find someone we love. That's pretty much automatic. And you may notice people, particularly even at a young age, they will do things you're saying, how did that person know how to do that to attract the people that they wanted to be with? Well, watching people in the mating process, they do it almost automatically. They will dress in a certain way, act in a certain way if they are attracted to another person. So these beliefs about how to successfully reproduce are so one of the three big ones. So protection, big. Survival, big. Reproduction, big. Now there are others, but those are the top three. So let's drill in a bit further. Who were the first trends? I mentioned Napoleon Hill. Napoleon was hired by an entrepreneur, a very rich entrepreneur. I think it was J.P. Morgan, but I could be wrong. He was hired and allowed to travel the world and to interview highly successful people. And his goal that he was given, the task he was given, was to go and find what made these individuals successful. And I want to note here that he was basically going to the elite. So he was finding out what these elite, very rich and powerful people, what were they doing to be rich and powerful? And he came up with something called Principles of Success. And his particular book, Think and Grow Rich, was a huge hit. And I think it's one of the biggest selling books in history. And it's my belief that this book and his writings and his presentations shaped our modern day self-help growth community. So anyone who's big in the self-help community are probably drawing on Napoleon Hill's work. But he figured out that there were certain attributes that made successful people. And these attributes were not physical things. These were things about the individual, about the way that they perceive the world. So their internal map made them successful. They thought in a unique way. So it was the way that they thought. And this approach to becoming successful was rather revolutionary and made a huge impact. And Because up to that point, it was, well, books like, Who You Know and Get Rich, What You Do and Get Rich, What Education You Have, was things that you could do other than who you thought. So I would strongly recommend, if you want to do some additional research on this, research Napoleon Hill, find some of his videos. Lots of his videos are available that he made in the 50s and 60s. A wealth of information, which we'll be coming back onto. So after Napoleon's work, that introduced the idea that there was something that people were doing inside that made them unique, that made them successful. There was some power about the way that we thought. Well, that got the attention of certain organizations, and one project that I think most of you are aware of, MK Ultra, very notorious. There were a lot of universities in Canada that were MK Ultra fronts. And this is a story that I may or may not share with you later, but my brother got caught up in an MK Ultra experiment that we later found out. Pretty devastating. But what were they trying to do with MK? They were trying to wipe people's map. They were trying to alter their maps so that they could control how the person thought about themselves and what the person did. There was that famous movie, The Manchurian Candidate, basically the power. So here you have the information that Napoleon Hill found being picked up by groups that were kind of hidden, black project type groups. And this is probably happening all over the world. So it wasn't just in the US. Any of the major agencies, security agencies, they all began aware that being able to manipulate people, you had to be able to get inside their minds. And those are all the experiments with LSD and so on that took forward. Okay, so there's a lot of work done there, but then what started to happen is special organizations began to implement aspects of this knowledge. It began to move from the very rich and powerful into the secret organizations, and then into large organizations like the Olympics. If you watch old videos of the Olympics, what you will notice is, say, take the diving. The diver will walk up to the board, pause, take a deep breath, and dive. But then there was a point in these videos, if you watch over time, as you come closer up into the 40s and 50s, I think probably more like the 60s, what you will notice is that a change. Again, using diving as an example, the diver will walk up to the diving board, walk onto the diving board, and pause and almost meditate. And it might look like, what are they doing? Well, I started to notice this too. I noticed it not just in diving, but I noticed it in other sports in the Olympics, like long distance running, hurdles, all of the Winter Olympics and the skiing, downhill skiing. These athletes were being trained to do something in preparation for their actual event. What were they doing? Well, they were actualizing the power beliefs within their map. They were stimulating the most powerful components of their map that would give them the highest likelihood of completing and being number one and being successful. There's a story which I'll share with you about how the U.S. military used their understanding of the internal map to shorten the length of time it took for training elite snipers. The sniping school has to be probably the most difficult school there is in the military. Learning to be a rifle sniper is really difficult. And they had issues with shortening that time. There were two actual issues. They wanted to shorten the length of time it took to get master level snipers, but they also wanted to increase the number of successes, because it was the course where they had the highest number of failures. Okay? They were able to increase the success rate of an individual and get more people at the mastery level by utilizing their knowledge of the internal map of reality. And we'll go into how they did that later. And finally, an area that began to spread the knowledge about the internal map of reality to the wider thing was some of the top corporations started modifying their sales techniques to be able to train their salespeople in how to talk to customers. And then you started to see sales training incorporating components of the internal map of reality. For a while, I worked for a large American computer manufacturer as sales support, technical support. And I had to take some of that sales training, and it was quite amazing to see how they could drill into a customer's mind, right? What were they doing? They were using some of the knowledge that Napoleon Hill had revealed to the population, some of the knowledge that the secret agencies such as the MK Ultra project had found out, and some of the knowledge that was coming through the elite athletes. But you see here, it's still information that's being held by the elite athletes have it, or the top-end secret agencies have it, or the high-end corporate sales organizations have it, not the customers, not the every day-to-day person. Well, that changed. And it was, I believe, in the 80s that information started to come out, and a book was published called The Secret. And Janice, my wife at the time, before she passed, asked me to get that book for her. And I did get it, and I said, well, I wonder what's the story about The Secret? So I began to research it, and I bumped into a gentleman by the name of Bill Harris. And Mr. Harris had done a tremendous amount of work in not just what The Secret was and what it meant. And those of you who don't know about The Secret, there's some videos on it. But basically, it's an awareness that if you change the way you thought, you could get what you want, basically, is what The Secret's about. But Bill Harris took it a bit further. He broke it down into very delineated components. So I'll be using a lot of the approaches that Bill put together, and I like to just acknowledge him greatly for all the work he's done. And I take it upon myself is to maybe continue what he has done, and by sharing this information with the public. So because of The Secret and the work of people like Bill Harris, celebrities like Oprah Winfrey became very popular, and her show and many others like it, like the Dr. Phil show, and I believe there's some others. Sort of the self-help industry began to flourish, and meditation practices, self-help practices started to grow. And these all use principles of the map. But what I'm going to share with you in this course is how to understand your personal map and what the parts of it are, and if you so choose, how to modify your personal map to get what you want out of life. Now, again, I'll repeat, if you're happy with your life, you just want to learn about the map, great, leave it alone. But if they're not happy, here's another way that you can begin to work on developing these skills. Okay, so that's the end of this segment. And what I will do is I'll be talking with you in the open chat. And if you have questions about the material received so far, suggested that you take a look at Napoleon Hill, look at that material, or research the gentleman Bill Harris if you want more information. What I think you might notice, and what I've noticed, is that you will not find a lot of readily available information on the internet entitled Map of Reality. If you do, please flag me on it, email me with what you find. Okay, so that's the segment 2, and we will get together very soon and do part 3.